Awesome, awesome. Welcome to Happy Thursday, huh?
Yeah, that's it. It's the new Wednesday or Friday, maybe.
It's a new Wednesday. Well, the good news is we just passed the shortest day of the year here in Melbourne, and it only gets brighter from today, from yesterday. So we're on the homeward trail to summer.
I like it. I like it.
Yeah. Look, thanks again for joining me today. We're just picking up on a conversation we started last week when one of our listeners posted the question around setting price, and he did it right in the last 2 minutes of the call, which didn't really give us much time to expand. So we carried this over and we talked about this idea of pricing. And I suppose when you think about professional services, and setting price, it's a really interesting question, isn't it?
Yeah, it's to me. It's I think it comes down to a couple of things. The first is confidence in your own product or service. I think if you don't have that confidence, that you're not going to charge appropriately, and it's about charging what's reasonable for your time. And I think the second thing is you also part of that confidence comes from having buy-in from your customers. And if you're getting regular buy-in and they're valuing what you do, then they're fine. They have no issue paying
Yeah.
a good amount. So that's what I've sort of learned. I mean, how do you view pricing, David?
Yeah. Very, very interesting question. I think fundamentally, when you think about what pricing is, it's about a trade. And I think sometimes we forget, and we're very emotional when it comes to money, when it comes to deciding how to set pricing and how much people will and won't pay. And, if we want to elicit emotion from people, you can talk about religion, you can talk about politics, and you can talk about money. And they're the three hot buttons. And I've mentioned sex as well, but we might not on this particular live stream. But my point is, I think when it comes to price, it's very subjective. And the mechanics behind it are pretty simple. It's a trade. So in the old days, before we had money, we used to go around, and if I used to have a pig farm and used to grow corn, I would walk over with a pig and trade you for some corn. But it became a pretty inconvenient thing, so we started creating tokens. So now what happens is, when I go to sell my service and people say, well, how much do you charge? What they're really looking for is not the price. They're looking for the value proposition. So I might say I charge $10, or I might say I charge $1,000. Now, some people go, $1,000 for what? Right? That's a good question, right? $10 for what is a good question. So knowing the price without knowing the deliverable doesn't mean I can assess value. So we talk about price setting, and I'm just going to make sure I've got my little chat box. Anyone who's joining us, feel free to say g'day in the chat box, and I'll see if I can make it work. We had some great things going last week. And so for me, the price thing is $1 million question, but it's worth a lot of money. Because when we talk about growing profitability of a business, probably the very first place I would look is the pricing structure. Because I feel people often do things like they fear price increases. They go, oh, I can't increase my price, my customers would leave. Or they say, I can't charge more because it's hard enough to get a client, let alone worry about whether they're going to say yes or no because of price. So when people ask me, how do you set price? I say, well, you got a few options. You can go to the market and you can look at what other people are charging, and you can then compete. Okay. Sort of reasonable in a commoditized market, not reasonable in a market where your product is unique. So if you think about services, because we focused on the professional services industry, the trading, the commoditization is hourly rate and day rate. Okay. How much do you charge per hour? How much do you charge for a day? Now, what that doesn't take into account is the quality of the work that you do in that period of time. So I can give you really cheap hourly rate by putting a junior consultant on, okay? Or I can give you a premium consultant who's the best in the industry and charge 10 to 20 times more per hour because of the value. So I suppose my thought process is take the time out of the equation and start assessing what the value proposition is, and your pricing model will be vastly different. So simple thing, and I don't know if you've ever done this, but when I used to be in the early days of coaching, one of our first strategies was to say, increase your price by 10%. And people would go, oh my God, I'll lose people. I go, just do it with new quotes. Don't do it with your existing clients. Just put your price up by 10% on new quotes, and let's see what happens. 90% of the time, people would come back 1 week later and say, no one flinched. And I say, how do you feel about that? And they go, I feel like kicking myself in the backside because I've been undercharging for so long. And had zero to do with changing anything except for the number on the quote. So what are your thoughts around price and how it's set?
Yeah, I've been on a bit of a journey where I undercharged for a long time, David.
Yes.
And I think that maybe that was down to the confidence of the value of the product or the impact it had. And I remember last year in particular, I went through a bit of a journey where I was just trying to work out how do I set prices. And we went and did different projects, and they were like custom projects. So the price was really up in the air, and that was good learning. And some of the bigger companies that we worked with, as you say, they didn't flinch. They were just like, "Yep, we can do it." So it kind of made me then think about how we move forward in terms of our pricing. And now it's a very simple model based around that value that you were talking about.
Yep.
And I know that by pricing it appropriately, the value, the expectation of the value is obviously greater, but then I've got now the belief in the value that I'm going to be able to give to someone. I think because I've actually gone and I've been doing these strategies and things myself.
Yeah.
So, I'm someone who likes to see the result of it, and then that gives me more confidence. It's like, I don't know, teaching someone how to, kick a soccer ball. Once I learn how to do it, then yeah, sure, I can teach someone else how to do it. So I think, to me, the penny dropping was really around, if I know that the companies that I want to work with, if they're appropriately sized or they have the resources, they have the means, I'm going to back myself, and I'm going to create a product that is highly valuable and will get cut through, and therefore they don't flinch. Because I've done the right thing, and I've set the groundwork, and I've positioned myself as someone who really knows what they're talking about and can get results. So
brilliant.
It's taken me 4 years to get here, but I think now it's a different feeling when you think about money and pricing.
Yeah. I was talking to a coach about this a few weeks back, and the comment came up outcomes over hours, right? So when we say how much should we charge, and we think, well, you can base it on hours and you can base it on standards, but the missing link in that equation is the quality of the work. And so when we talk about outcomes, we're talking about deliverables. We're talking about, well, what am I going to get as a result of paying you? So you might say, I charge $150 an hour for my flat rate for copywriting. That's okay. That's just an hourly rate, but it doesn't tell me the quality of the work, okay? And sometimes people think it's more secure paying hourly rate because you only pay for what you use. But if I turned around and said, look, we charge $3,000 to write an ad for you, you'd go, oh, how many hours is that? It doesn't matter on the hours. What matters is the result. So $3,000, we guarantee it's going to produce X amount of leads.
Yep.
Right. So I'm paying $3,000 instead of $150. But you're telling me it's going to produce an output, an outcome, right? A number of leads. And so all of a sudden, it's not about how many hours it took. It's about what am I going to get in return, as in physically get, not ideally. So I think the pricing question, and I can't remember the exact wording that Jamal used when he asked the question last week, but it was around how much can I get away with charging, or how much should I charge, or what do I do in a competitive environment? My suggestion is simple. If you're in a competitive environment, you've got to get out of the competitive environment. And I don't mean run. I mean change the terrain, change the game, okay? So when someone says, I've got 3 quotes in front of me for the same thing. Yep. Now, here's the truth. I can sell you 2 things that are identical, but I can charge 2 different prices. And the way it works is simple. When I have, say, I don't know, I might have 2 pens. Do it this way. I have these 2 pens, right? Actually, I'll do it this way. I have these 2 pens, right? 2 pens, right? They're exactly the same, right? And one of them is $1 and one of them is $3, right? And the question is, well, why would I pay $3 for a pen when the other one's $1? So, well, with the $3 pen, we give you a lifetime guarantee, which means if it ever runs out, we'll replace it. With the $1 pen, it's $1. Now, in the end, there's a value proposition attached to the product, okay? Yeah. Now, if I know how long one of these pens lasts, I'll be more realistic. I'll say I'll give you a 12-month guarantee because I know it's going to last more than 12 months with this one, but not with that one. So I suppose that's a simple sort of idea. But where I'm going is the value of a product is not the product. The value of the product is the package around the product. And so when people say, how do I charge more in a competitive market? I say, repackage your product so it's more valuable than what your competitors are offering. And it's interesting because especially in the consulting world, we always get strapped back to hourly rate. We always get strapped back to, well, coaching programs, or how many hours of your time do I get? Okay. And as soon as I hear that, I know that my positioning is incorrect. Okay. And I think that's really where the problem is. So I think that there's an interesting point there, right? We have a guest joining us on this call. So I'm going to see if I can let him in because I don't actually know who it is, but I'm guessing. Let's have a look. I'm going to make you guest number 1. You are. And I'm going to make this guy guest number 2. I'm guessing this is... actually, we'll wait to see if the video comes in. It's just in the green room. But going back to this conversation, and we are a bit sort of shooting from the hip today. The question is, how do I set my price? And we've already talked about, going to outcomes rather than hours. I think there's a second piece to this puzzle, and it's actually what does the client get when they buy your product or service? And the more you can guarantee it, like if you said to me, David, don't pay me to write copy, pay me to generate leads. And here he is, Shamal's back. Yes, I'm going to get this question up on the screen for you, Andrew, because it's quite a long one. Main question was, how can we charge more for a referral contact when they know what we charge the client who referred them? Cool. Thanks, Shamal, for the reminder. So this is something that happens with us too. Now, when you get a referral, one of the downsides of a referral is that you assume because the person that referred them to you is introducing you to this person, that the pricing will be the same. Now, here's what I found. Very few people will talk about the price that you charge amongst themselves because it's usually private and it's confidential and it's bespoke. So, I mean, some people will pay a price because they get a level of service from Andrew, and other people will pay a bit more because they go for a different level. We've had situations where we've had people in programs that they're paying vastly different prices. Some of them are paying 50% more than others for the same program. Now, we have to reconcile in our heads what happens if they talk. Well, usually it's just that you need an answer. And the answer that I'm looking for is we actually have this loyalty arrangement with our clients. If you've been a client of ours over a period of time, your price doesn't go up. We grandfather pricing, which means as long as you continue working with us, your price remains the same. Okay, we don't put CPI in there, and we don't do any of the price increases as we increase the value of our product. But what it means is that an existing client will get access to all the new things for no charge. New clients can't get access to the old way that we deliver. So therefore, when the price is variable, the price is different, we end up in a scenario where people are paying twice as much for what they think is the same program because it's delivered the same way, but the legacy client is paying less because of their loyalty. So I don't know if this helps, Shamal, but I suppose the real question is, how do you become comfortable with having a pricing differential between two people that you serve? And the short answer is you can go one way, which is increase everyone's price as you increase the value. And so, like, this year is going to be an interesting year for people in business because CPI is 5% in Australia. Okay, a 5% increase in CPI means that if you do not increase your pricing by 5% this year, your costs go up by 5%, which means your margins get eroded. So if you don't do that, that's rewarding clients for loyalty or being fearful of offering a price increase even though your costs increased. My sort of summary answer to Shamal is this, okay? Your new client needs to be aware that they're paying more than the existing client. Because as you grow as a business, your product or service becomes more valuable. Your existing client needs to be aware also that you reward loyalty so that they're quite comfortable that there will be a price difference as the business progresses. Because the company, like in our business, what we are this year compared to what we were last year, we've innovated quite a few things. So rather than saying to everyone we had as clients, hey, we're going to charge more because of all these innovations, we say, hey, you get it for free because of loyalty. And that creates retention. And with the new guys, we say, hey, this is the value proposition. So they're not looking at what is everyone else paying. They're saying, is it value for money for me? Because if it is value for money, but it's still more expensive than everyone else is paying, I'm not going to go elsewhere because it's still value for money. Does that make sense? Yeah.
I think
So,
Shmuel as well with that referral piece. Maybe you could ask yourself too: is it the same kind of client, or is it like? Do you deliver the same product to the same type of client, or is there maybe a slightly different solution for a different size or other type of client? Because in that case, it might be a different solution, altogether, and therefore the model will change.
yeah.
But yeah, it's a good question. I think the referral piece, people come to us warm anyway if they're referred, so they're generally going to be interested in what we have to do. And I think your point earlier, David, around they're not really looking at the price; they're looking at you've already had 2/3 of the work done. You've already been pre-sold by someone else.
Yeah.
So I think you just got to be confident about the fact that you provide a really valuable service, and clients will need to pay for that. And it's not really the question about whether the other one will find out. For me, it's about, well, this is what I'm giving you right now because it's tailored towards you and what you need.
Yeah. It's a really important distinction. It's a mindset shift.
Yeah.
Because I think if I look at this, I had this fear once when I was in business because we were improving our program and we were charging more, and I was saying, oh my goodness, there's a lot of people in this program that are paying less, and so the new guys are paying more. Am I ripping them off by charging more? And then I went through this process. I said, well, what's the value? And
Yes.
the value exceeded the cost. And no one's locked into a contract, so I'm not ripping them off. I'm saying this is what you get and this is how much it costs. And when they say, well, what's everyone else paying? I go, well, that's not directly relevant. What's relevant is it good value for you? What everyone else is paying is got to do with when they joined us and what the deal was on the day. So when my confidence is low, I charge less. And as I build confidence, as you've started to do, you say, well, do I go and charge more across the board, or do I just charge more for new clients? So when we did this 10% price increase with clients, they go, I can't do that, I'll lose clients. I say, only charge new people. And if they still say yes, then you know that price is still good value. But now you're creating this discrepancy in your client base where some people are paying more than others for the same service. Now, if you can justify it in your own head, there's no problem with that, right? Because they're buying it based on a deal. And at the point of the transaction, it was a good deal. Okay. And that's really all that matters, because if someone pays, and I'll use arbitrary numbers, someone pays $1,000 a month to join our program, 2 years later we charge $2,000 a month for the same program. Why? We have more confidence in ourselves, we're delivering more value, we've got some track record, and at $2,000 it's still great value. So someone joins us at $2,000, they come to a session, they talk to one of the other guys and they go, oh no, we don't pay $2,000, we're only paying $1,000. And they ring me up and they say, David, what's going on? How come I'm paying $2,000 and they're paying $1,000? Well, my short answer is, first of all, before you knew that, were you getting value? And if the answer is yes, then you know that it's not about the value, it's about the discrepancy. And then you need a reason why there's a difference. And you might say, well, those guys have been around for 3 years. And if you joined 3 years ago, I could give you that price. But now, this is the price, and you've still made the decision that it's great value. And then we move on. Because it ends up, like when we talk about price increases, the people I feel that have the biggest objection with price increase is not the customer, it's actually the supplier. And it's the fear of the consequence of changing my price. Now, the real concern, the real question that I think people need to ask is, am I confident that whatever price I'm charging is good value for money? Because if it is, then this whole idea of having price differential becomes less important.
I think what you're saying around the value, maybe just going back to that as well, David, and everyone who's watching on the call, to me that's like the first step, because if someone's questioning the value, then you haven't done a good enough job about articulating what that means for them, and as you say, what the outcomes will be. And just going to the example that I sort of had, we had a couple of products. We did email newsletters, and we did website copywriting as an example. We did that for a long time.
Yep.
And I put a nominal amount on there. It was pretty low, I think, based on what they were getting.
Yeah.
But as we sort of moved along, I realized that, well, if I can get crystal clear on the objections that these ideal clients have, and really what they're looking for, and what's the most pressing things that they're looking to achieve in the next 6 to 12 weeks. And if I can really focus on those things and get my language right when I'm speaking to them, then that's going to be a significant advantage, and price won't even enter the equation.
Yes.
And that's what I've realized, especially this year, is because I've become so super honed on what the value is for that particular person, then it's a different question. It's not about this is what it will cost. It's as you said before, David. It's about this is what I'm going to get for you at the completion of it. So,
Now I'm going to try this experiment. I don't know if this is going to work, Andrew, but let's see if we can get this. No, you lost your
we can see the whiteboard. Very good.
Yeah, but we can't see you.
It's okay. We'll look at you and the whiteboard. That's important.
So really, let me see if I can get you up there. I'm going to try one thing. No, maybe I'm not. I'm going to say we're in here, and we're going to add. No, we can't. You're not there. Interesting. Thought I could get you up there. Never mind. So when we look at products, the first thing that I want to talk about is this whole idea of a commodity product. Okay. Now, when we talk about a commoditized product, what we mean is something that has no distinction between one supplier and the other. An example might be if you were buying sugar. Okay. Now, sugar. Here we go. Can we put Andrew here? Not gonna let me. Come on, Andrew. You were there before.
Yep. Still here.
Yeah. And so, commodity is a product that has no distinction, so one equals the other. If we want to distinguish our sugar, what we do is we brand it. So we move it from being a commodity to being a product. So now we label it Bundaberg sugar or CSR sugar. It's still white sugar. It's in the packet. If we pour it out into 2 trays, it's very difficult to tell the difference, if not impossible. But now, because of the brand, we can attract a slightly different price. Okay. Same happens with petrol. Right? We can buy petrol from Shell. We can buy petrol from Caltex. One of them says theirs is better than the other, but the truth of the matter is we can't really tell. Maybe some people can, but the majority of people can't. And so we want to increase this distinction or this differential. So when we move beyond product, the next thing we need to think about is how do we turn our product, or how do we add value by adding a service? Now, the service is where the distinction starts to become real, okay? Because I can put a label on the front of the product, but the product is the product. When I said to you these 2 pens are of 2 different prices, and I said one comes with a guarantee, now I'm adding service into the equation. So the product might be the same, but the support or the whole idea of having them together is now adding value. So we sort of move through this world of escalating the value of our product. Now, if we combine product and service together, we create what's called an offering. And the newest thing that people are really making a decision on is a thing called the experience, the shopping experience. Apple did a really good job of revolutionizing the retail experience for people who buy phones. You know, they created their shop, and you go in there, and there's more people working there than there are customers. Which means the service is awesome, right? You walk in and you say, I have a problem with my phone, and they say, have you got a booking? No. And they go, we need to make a booking. That will be a 3-minute wait. Now, that is sort of, that's what I call exceptional customer service. The experience that I've had, and I might be biased, but the experience I have with my Apple products and the service they provide is amazing. And I used to be in IT, so I've got the contrast. So this experience is where we start to see some real differences. Now, we can add to this by adding a thing called risk reversal. And that's what I talked about with guarantee. So risk reversal is where you take any of the purchase risk away, and so you can increase the value again. And the last thing I want to add to this one is if you really want to have your price stand out in the marketplace, you need to create what's called transformation. Now, transformation literally means that your product changes things for people, changes their world. Okay. And when we talk about transformation, it's quite difficult to do, but it usually shows up in testimonial, right? So when you have clients that you do an amazing job for, what you will find is that they will come back and say, Andrew, your copywriting changed my whole marketing strategy. Now, that is worth its weight in gold. Okay, that's transformation. So I suppose what I'm trying to explain here is that pricing is not about hourly rate. Pricing is not about competitors. Pricing is about product differentiation. And pricing is about making sure that you understand, how do I make my product different when everyone who's buying it is trying to make it the same? Okay. I used to do a lot of work in tenders, right? And when it comes to writing tenders, the purpose of writing a tender in my mind is it's a butt covering exercise. And what I mean by that is that I would put a tender out to market so I can get 3 proposals that cover exactly the same spec, so I can compare apples with apples. Okay. And then what happens is when I make the decision, it's going to be based on the best tender response, which means there's a structure. Now, the downside of a tender is if I don't know what I'm looking for, then I can't compare apples with apples. So we need to be mindful that in a tender world, right, you've got to try and change the terrain, change the game, right? And if you do that, then you can become competitive by being higher priced, not just competitively priced. And so thinking about how do I change risk reversal, how do I create transformation, or how do I change the experience are all things that change the price. Okay. And so I think when people have price challenges, part of it is thinking about how do I add value in, like, without physically giving more. So not working longer hours, but adding more value. And it's a much better approach to business, to adding, like, the question of how do I increase my price? The answer is, well, how do you make sure the client gets more value?
I love that. I love the first line there, David. That's worth revisiting, or at least sharing, I think, again, because we both know the book Alex Hormozi's $100 million offer, and he talks exactly about the things, looking at offers and looking at your services in a completely different way. And I think that's a really good place to start if you're interested in doing it. And then have a look and see the formula about that. But yeah, I really enjoyed that. Thank you, David.
Yeah, look, I think what we'll do, Andrew, is we might continue this conversation, but we might move into the how to add value conversation. And not sure how we're going to go. I think next week we've got something else that we're going to be covering. I think we're talking about outsourcing next week. But what I might do is make sure that we put this on the agenda as a topic on how to add value. And hopefully we're adding value to the people who are watching these. And the real deal here is to sort of think creatively about how can I increase the value of something without having to work any harder or without having to reduce the price. And if we think about that, I think we're going to find that people are going to become much more entrepreneurial in their price setting. They're going to realize it's not just about getting as much as I can. It's about adding as much value as I can and getting paid accordingly.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Terrific.
All right, Andrew, look, we're right on the half hour again. I know we're keeping these short and sharp, but we don't want to lose people's interest, and they probably need to eat some lunch as well. So enjoy the rest of your day. And guys, I hope we got you some valuable insights today, and we'll look forward to catching up with you again next week.
Thanks, David. Thanks, everyone, for watching.
Cheers, Andrew.